All right, we had talked about how the look of your lighting has evolved for your film Turpentine.
Yeah, yeah.
Discuss that process. Where did you start? Where did you end up? Are you happy with the end result? Do you wish some things could have been done differently?
Well, I think I think there's always something that you kind of wish, like, oh, I wish I could go back and alter just a little bit, or certain discrepancies that you would, as a creator, you want to, go back. You're sometimes, I know, for me personally, I'm my harshest critic. Well, there's plenty of harsh critics
We
out there,
all
but
are our worst critics. You're not alone.
so it's sort of just there are things that I wish I could change, but in the developmental process of the look of the film, we set out, like, again, I wanted to keep everything local. I thought it was important to sort of create something that Lambertville could be proud of, or could be involved in as much as possible, and it ended up being that. But the initial locations that we picked, like, this is a very well, right now it's desolate. It's a tourist town, so it fluctuates with thousands of people, and that sort of limits you on when you can film somewhere or where you can film. But since we're right on the water, we're a river town. Initially, I wanted that to be the lake. I wanted to figure out a way to to shoot this and sort of limit. We made posts on the local Facebook group pages, and a lot of people were surprisingly supportive. I'm like, hey, you can come check out my backyard. You can
Wow.
come. Yeah, and there were even people who were like, "Hey, come and try to film my house. I have this amazing. There's so much beautiful architecture here. It's such an old town. It used to be, like, I think it was a home for, like, a monastery. So we have a
Okay.
bunch of buildings, like a giant one, like the Vatican type deal. But we have all these old buildings that look gorgeous on the inside, and there were so many people who were like, "Come here. You can use my living room. You can use my
Wow.
upstairs." Yeah, so it was like, wow, okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes all you have to do is ask, right?
yeah, seriously. Well, that's something that I think is really important for any other filmmaker trying to start in this. Like, don't be afraid to ask people, and just be nice, be kind, be respectful. So yeah, we had three initial locations that were paramount to the film. One was, again, the river. Another was this gorgeous house that we were going to use for the living room, dining room, garage scenes. I think most of the living room scenes got cut, though. But in that process, we ended up realizing we can't shoot on the river. It was actually the first day of filming. We had checked it out before, and there wasn't as much harsh lighting, and I guess we just didn't consider, like, okay, this could be really bad if it was a very, very bright day, and there's not really a
Sure.
way to recover from that. And so we get on set, and we immediately realize, like, fuck, like, this isn't gonna work out. So we thankfully, again, when I casted, three of them were very seasoned actors. Eric Sladisco, who I know you know,
Hmm.
and is a wonderful person. Then we had this woman, Lauren, who had acted previously, but not as much. But she was local, and she was a socialite locally, and that was sort of a political decision. Like, we need somebody who can help us with the production, and to bring her in locally, who's lived here for a much longer time. She hit up her friend Daphne. Turns out this woman had a private lake behind her house,
Hmm.
sort of private lake. So we immediately drove over there. It was gorgeous. It ended up working out perfectly. So that was the only very weird last minute change that wasn't as planned. But whenever I go to shoot something, I have my background's in photography as well. I do sort of, like, we were just able to transplant the shot that we had at the river over to the lake, and the only thing that really changed was the foliage and the lake itself, which was gorgeous. And they had this little shed that we actually in post ended up incorporating as part of the story, because there was something written in there initially about another structure that we didn't have, so it worked
Oh,
out.
okay. Now, did
um,
you use both shots from both locations together, or did you do just like a complete reshoot?
yeah, yeah, we complete reshoot.
Okay.
We actually didn't even we made it like 3 seconds into the first scene, and it was sort of just like, we need to call it and make a decision about if we can find something else. um, and but yeah, it worked out perfectly. That was like, if I had known that place existed prior, I would have gone and begged to use it. But there's a lot of surprises in this area that I live in. There's a lot of hidden back roads, so chances are there is something that you'd be able to shoot. The other instance, we had this Airbnb that I knew the owner of. Well, again, Laura knew the owner of. She connected us with Jenny. She's a phenomenal person. She had this gorgeous old firehouse that was restored and had this two bedrooms on top of each other, which ended up being Eric's bedroom, or Henry's bedroom. But yeah, and that was the lighting in there. Like it was so dark. There was not a lot of lighting in there, which is ideal. Like, it's perfect. Not a lot of natural light. We were able to block out everything. I like to do as much controlled lighting as possible, so we always black rooms, build it from the scratch. And with this one, again, because of all the colors, we just ended up using a bunch of gels on. I think we had two like ladybug lights, which are like $300 lights, not expensive. They
And are
ended
they
up
like Fresnel, like spot lights?
LED. Yeah. Well, no, this one of them was a Fresnel. The other was literally just the non ladybug light was just a work light that we
Okay.
gelled. It ended up. It really it's surprising how powerful those can be. Like if you just go to Home Depot, grab a bunch of those, and
Yeah, I mean that was my first lighting kit.
exactly. And it's funny now. I finally have like apertures, and it's like, oh, I wish I could go back and use them for this film. But honestly, it's like I'm so happy with how it turned out, and I think it's also just a good representation of like you can do a lot with a little. Like the budget for this film was, except for paying the actors, was like nothing. So it was kind of like get creative, do whatever you can, and I am so happy with how it turned out.
And you did pay the actors?
Yeah,
Great.
always. That like going into this, I know that's like, your first film, it's daunting. Like just save up enough to pay the actors. Like they'll be so much happier. You'll get better performances. Like we really wanted to do this right if we were going to do it at all. So
Good tip. Good tip. That's admirable. So you said the look had kind of evolved. We've talked on the locations. Let's get a little more into the lighting. You threw some gels on there, and was that just something that you thought something needed to pop, or it worked thematically?
it worked. So again, before going into this, I know that every single individual film has a color palette like to it that is like, or at least any of the major motion pictures, they have very specific colors they're using, and I wanted to sort of take care of that a bit. Like I try to be as I think what is it, like a purist, where you do everything in front of the camera as much as possible, and that's sort of what was the inspiration of that. Also, if you pay attention to the colors in the story, the colors all connect to their actual, like if you go into the charts that break down colors and the emotions they invoke, it was sort of just trying to use that science as much as possible, and we did it in a way that the colors also tell the story. And it was sort of like, okay, we have music that's going to build, break, tell the story. I want to do the same thing with the lighting. So that was like planned out. But of course, on set, you just sort of have to adjust to make it look as cinematic as possible. And playing with darkness is the way to do that, in my opinion. Take out all the light, and just any darkness you're leaving in there is a part of it. It's not like a neutral. It's as much a part of the coloring as the light is. So we used a lot of shadows, especially for the bedroom scenes, the scenes where Joan is sort of at the foot of Henry's bed. That was, a really fun one to focus on. But there's a lot of shadow play in that.